Hey, Dan-splainers. We're diving into some pretty choppy waters.
Yeah,
A full-blown trade war.
that's right.
Imagine waking up one morning and finding out that avocado toast costs like $1 more.
Oh my gosh.
That new car you've been saving up for is suddenly out of reach,
Yikes.
and the global economy feels like it's teetering on the edge of a recession.
Yeah,
That's the potential reality we're facing as the U.S. kind of throws down the gauntlet
yeah.
with some pretty hefty tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and China.
It's a bold move for sure.
It is.
One that's sending shockwaves through the markets.
So we're not just talking about like minor adjustments
No,
here.
not at all.
This is a full 25% tariff on goods from Canada and Mexico,
That's right.
and an additional 10% on top of what we already have on Chinese imports.
Exactly.
So for those of us who don't spend all day glued to CNBC, what does that actually mean? Break it down for us.
Yeah.
What's the driving force behind this whole trade war thing?
Okay, so to understand that,
Okay.
we kind of need to look at the concept of a trade war itself.
Right.
Essentially, it's a back and forth
Right.
escalation of tariffs and trade barriers.
Gotcha.
Each country is trying to use its economic power to get some kind of advantage.
Leverage, yeah.
In this case, the U.S. is saying
Yeah.
they're worried about border security,
Okay.
particularly fentanyl smuggling from Mexico.
Right.
And then there's the issue of trade deficits, which is always a big one.
Ah, yes. The trade deficit.
Yeah,
This idea that other countries are winning because they sell us more than we sell them.
exactly.
But isn't that kind of an oversimplification?
I think so.
Trade is more complicated than that, right?
Yeah, it's not a simple zero-sum game.
It's a web, a very complex web.
Right, a complex web of interconnected flows.
So maybe focusing just on the overall trade deficit can be misleading.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, for example, we import a lot of goods from China,
Right.
but a lot of those goods are actually produced by multinational companies using American technology
Yeah,
and American intellectual property.
exactly. So the economic benefits are a lot more intertwined than a simple deficit number would suggest.
Right. So it's not as simple as they're winning and we're losing.
Nope.
Okay. How about the argument for bolstering domestic manufacturing?
Yeah,
I mean, the administration has been very vocal about bringing jobs back to America.
for sure.
Is that a realistic outcome?
Well,
Or is that just wishful thinking in today's globalized
I
economy?
mean, it's a complex issue.
Okay.
There's no easy answers.
Right.
While some companies might be incentivized to move production back to the U.S. to avoid tariffs,
Okay.
there's also countervailing forces at play.
I see.
Automation has been transforming the manufacturing landscape for a while now.
Right.
And simply bringing jobs back doesn't necessarily mean a net increase in employment.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So we could see a shift in the types of jobs available,
Okay.
with a greater emphasis on skilled labor and technology.
So it's not as simple as tariffs equal more American jobs.
Definitely not.
There's a whole ecosystem of factors to consider.
Exactly.
Okay, but let's get down to brass tacks here.
Sure.
What are the real-world consequences of all this?
Well,
We're hearing a lot about rising prices.
yes.
But how bad could it actually get?
It depends.
Like, will that avocado toast
Yeah.
become a luxury?
The price of avocados could certainly go up.
Okay.
If Mexican imports get hit with that 25% tariff,
Right.
just think about it, that avocado toast that you love.
Yeah.
Get ready to shell out an extra $1 per slice.
Ouch.
And that's just one example.
Right.
This is part of a larger trend of how global food supplies are being reshaped,
Okay.
with potential implications for food security and affordability.
So it's more than just avocado toast.
It is.
This is a much bigger issue.
Yes, it's a global issue.
We keep hearing about a potential recession looming.
Yes,
Is that a legitimate concern?
it could be.
Or is that just fear-mongering?
Well, anytime you have this level of disruption in global trade,
Yeah.
there's always a risk of economic fallout.
Right.
Businesses get hesitant to invest,
Yeah.
consumers tighten their belts,
Makes sense.
and the overall economic engine starts to sputter.
Right. So it can have a ripple effect.
Exactly.
It's interesting to look back at history,
Yeah.
like the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act of 1930.
Right.
A lot of economists believe that actually made the Great Depression worse.
It's a good example.
Obviously, the situation today is different,
It is.
but it's a cautionary tale
Yeah.
about the unintended consequences of protectionist policies.
For sure.
So history tells us we should proceed with caution.
Definitely.
But let's move beyond the theoretical for a minute.
Okay.
Let's talk about who's actually feeling the heat right now.
Yeah.
Which industries are being hit hardest
Yeah.
by these tariffs?
Well, auto sector is definitely feeling the tremors.
How so?
Cars are incredibly complex products.
They are.
With parts sourced from all over the world.
Right.
A 25% tariff on parts from Mexico and Canada could send the price of a new car skyrocketing,
Wow.
hurting both consumers and potentially jeopardizing manufacturing jobs across all three countries.
See, that's what I don't get.
Yeah.
It seems like it would hurt us as much as it hurts them.
It could definitely have negative impacts on all sides.
Okay, so can you give us a real-world example?
Sure. Let's say you're looking at that popular sedan.
Yeah, the one everyone drives.
The one that costs around $25,000.
Okay.
Well, with these tariffs, it could jump to over $31,000.
Wow, a $6,000 price hike.
Yeah, that's a big difference.
That's significant.
It is.
And it's not just consumers who suffer.
No.
What about the workers whose livelihoods depend on these industries?
Absolutely. The potential job losses are a major concern.
Okay, so in the U.S., what are we looking at?
We could see significant numbers of jobs vanish.
In what sectors?
Automotive, agriculture, and manufacturing.
And what about Canada?
In Canada, under a 10% tariff,
Yeah.
we're talking about potentially losing 500,000 jobs.
Wow. And that number jumps to a staggering 1.5 million under a 25% tariff.
That's a lot of jobs.
It is.
And I imagine most of those losses would be in the auto industry.
Yeah, mostly automotive and energy sectors.
And Mexico being so reliant on exports to the U.S.,
Right.
they must be in a particularly vulnerable position.
They are. Mexico's economy is deeply intertwined with the U.S.
Especially in the auto industry.
Exactly. Some estimates suggest their GDP could plummet by 16%,
Wow.
devastating their industrial centers,
Yeah.
leading to widespread job losses.
It paints a pretty grim picture.
It does.
So we've got rising prices, potential job losses,
Ah.
and a looming recession.
It's a lot to think about.
It is, and we'll delve into it even further when we come back after the break. It's almost like we're playing a high-stakes game of Jenga,
Yeah.
pulling out these pieces and hoping the whole thing doesn't collapse.
Good analogy.
And speaking of interconnectedness,
Right?
we can't forget about China.
Of course not.
They've got a big role to play in this trade war. They do?
And while they haven't outlined specific retaliation measures yet,
Yeah.
history suggests they won't just take this lying down.
No, they weren't.
So what form could that retaliation take?
Well, they could target U.S. agricultural exports,
Okay.
which would be a huge blow to American farmers,
Yeah.
especially those who rely on the Chinese market.
Because China is a major buyer.
They buy a lot of soybeans, pork, other agricultural products.
So disrupting those trade flows
Yeah,
could have a ripple effect through rural communities across the U.S.
exactly.
So it's not just prices at the grocery store we're talking about.
It's not.
We're talking about people's livelihoods,
That's right.
entire industries hanging in the balance.
It's a big deal.
And this isn't the first time the Trump administration has imposed tariffs on China, right?
No, it's not.
We saw a pretty big trade war erupt during his first term.
You did.
So is this just a continuation of that strategy?
Wow.
Or is this something new and potentially more alarming?
I mean, there are definitely parallels to the earlier trade war,
Okay.
but the scale of these new tariffs
Yeah.
and the fact that they're hitting Canada and Mexico at the same time,
Right.
it suggests a more aggressive approach,
Okay, so more aggressive and potentially more destabilizing.
potentially.
So the stakes are high,
They are.
and the potential consequences are pretty far-reaching.
They are.
But amidst all this doom and gloom,
Yeah.
are there any potential upsides to these tariffs?
Well,
I mean, the administration argues that this is all about protecting American jobs,
right.
bringing manufacturing back to the U.S.
Okay.
Is there any merit to that argument?
It's possible that some manufacturing jobs could return,
Okay.
but it's important to consider the broader context.
Like what?
Well, these tariffs could also lead to higher prices for consumers,
Right.
and that could offset any gains in manufacturing jobs.
So it's like a trade-off.
It is a balancing act.
And hasn't automation already been contributing to job losses in these sectors?
Absolutely. Automation has played a big role in the decline of manufacturing employment.
So are we overstating the impact of these tariffs on jobs?
It's not a simple equation.
Okay.
Tariffs don't automatically equal more jobs.
It's more nuanced than that.
Much more nuanced.
So what does all this mean for the average person listening right now?
Well,
What can they actually do to navigate this crazy economic landscape?
the most immediate impact will probably be felt in their wallets.
Okay.
As we talked about earlier, consumer prices are expected to rise.
Oh, groceries, cars, electronics.
Everything could be affected.
So batten down the hatches.
It might be wise to be more mindful of spending.
Okay. Spend less, basically.
Yeah, be more cautious.
But what about the long-term implications of this trade war?
Those are harder to predict,
I bet.
but there are a few things to watch.
Like what?
First, the potential for a global recession.
Oh, yeah, that's a scary thought.
If these tariffs keep escalating and other countries retaliate, it could trigger a slowdown in global trade and economic growth.
Right, and we all know what happens when the global economy sneezes.
We all catch a cold.
Exactly.
Another concern is geopolitical instability.
Okay.
Trade wars can strain relationships between countries.
Yeah.
Lead to increased tension.
Right.
Even conflict.
And we're already seeing some of that play out in the diplomatic arena.
We are.
It's like a reminder that economics and politics are totally intertwined.
They're two sides of the same coin.
Any other red flags we should be aware of?
Well, I think the biggest question is,
Okay.
will these tariffs actually achieve what they're supposed to achieve?
Will they bring back manufacturing jobs?
Yeah? Will they reduce trade deficits?
Or will they just lead to higher prices and economic uncertainty?
That's the big question.
That is the million-dollar question.
And unfortunately, we don't have a crystal ball.
Nope.
So we can't see how it's all going to play out.
But one thing's for sure.
What's that?
This trade war is a high-stakes gamble
It is.
with potentially huge consequences for everyone.
For everyone all around the world.
So much to think about.
It is a lot.
It really is.
It's complex.
We've been unpacking all this stuff about tariffs and trade wars.
Right.
And it's kind of enough to make your head spin.
Yeah, it's a complicated issue.
It is.
And there's a lot at stake, but that's exactly why it's so important to stay informed,
Right.
to stay engaged, because these decisions have far-reaching consequences and your voice actually matters.
Okay, so let's talk about that.
Yeah.
What can our listeners do?
Yeah.
Because it's easy to feel kind of overwhelmed
Oh, for sure.
and powerless in the face of all these like massive economic forces.
You're right. It can feel like we're just along for the ride, but knowledge is power.
Okay.
The more you understand about these issues,
Yeah.
the better equipped you'll be to deal with
Or
them.
navigate them.
Exactly. And to make informed choices,
Okay.
both as consumers and as citizens.
So step one, stay informed.
Exactly. Don't just bury your head in the sand,
Don't be an ostrich.
right? Read articles from good sources.
Okay.
Listen to podcasts like this one, of course.
Of course.
And talk to people who have different perspectives.
Don't just get stuck in an echo chamber.
Exactly. Don't just rely on one source of information.
Okay, so step one, stay informed. Step two, what else can we do?
Make your voice heard.
Okay.
Contact your elected officials.
Right.
Let them know what you think.
What you're concerned about.
Yeah. Support businesses that align with your values.
Okay.
And talk about these issues with your friends and family.
Have those discussions.
Yeah. Engage in those conversations.
Because it's a reminder that we're not just passive bystanders in all of this.
We're not.
We can actually make a difference.
We have agency. We can make choices that shape the world around us.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive into tariffs and trade wars,
Yeah.
what's the one key takeaway you want to leave our listeners with?
I think it's important to remember that this protectionist approach,
Okay, using tariffs.
using tariffs to try and revitalize domestic industries, it comes at a cost.
Okay,
So the question is it a viable long-term solution?
in a global economy.
Right, in an increasingly interconnected world.
And what role do we as individuals, as citizens, want to play?
Yeah. What kind of future do we want to create?
Those are big questions.
They are.
And we don't have all the answers.
No, but it's important to ask those questions.
It is. And for those of you who want to delve even deeper,
Yes.
head over to www.danceplane.xyz.
You'll find tons of resources there.
We've got analysis articles, all the latest news,
It's a great resource.
and of course, info on all of our amazing partner products,
Definitely check it out.
because staying informed is more important than ever.
Couldn't agree more.
It really is.
Until next time, Dansplainers.
Stay informed
Engage.
and stay awesome.